I'd like to call this meeting of the Gladstone City Commission for Monday, March 16, 2015 at 5 p.m. to order. This is a special commission meeting. We cannot take any action at this meeting. We are here to discuss the budget that was presented to the City Commission by the City Manager, developed in many staff meetings. We held 2 public hearings on the budget to go over all of the funds that the city operates. And then we introduced this matter at our last commission meeting a week ago. And the commission was not able to take action on approving a budget that night. We have until March 31st to approve a budget. So the main conversation tonight is going to be the commissioners at a public meeting. We cannot come to a consensus tonight, or we cannot vote tonight. We could perhaps come to a consensus, but we can't vote on any consensus tonight. Caught you there, eh? You were going to say that to me if I didn't. That will be the procedure tonight. I've had a meeting with the city manager today. The city manager has a few items she would like to bring up over and above the budget, but she basically said to me, she said, well, it's up to the commission now to decide where you want to go budget-wise, which is absolutely correct. That's our main job, is to adopt the budget. So that will be a majority of what we talk about tonight, but the first item on our agenda is public comment, so anybody who would like to address the commission can take the podium and identify yourself.
Paul Geyer from Public Safety. It has nothing to do with tonight's agenda, but I wanted to let the commission know that we've lifted our winter parking restrictions. You may have heard that in the news this afternoon. So for those that see the meeting in the next couple of days, if they don't happen to hear it in the news, we've lifted our winter parking restrictions for the year. So
you also sent a text message to the commission, and maybe the public hasn't heard it. You have hired a 9th public safety officer. Sounds like he's very well qualified, which didn't surprise me. I know you're pretty thorough in your background checks.
We are in the final processes of bringing him on board, yes. Yep, he has accepted our offer, and he has yet to start, but that will be hopefully April 6th will be his first day.
Very good. Any other public comment? Mr. Levine.
Yesterday, twice a day anyway, I go down to the compost pile. But yesterday I saw this tree trimming that works for UpCap. We're pruning all their trees along on from Lake Bluff.
You mean UPCO, right?
UPCO, whatever the name is.
Okay.
Okay, so I see all these branches. I said, where the heck all them come from? So I stopped and I talked to the foreman. I said, where are you pruning that stuff? He said, I'm bringing it over there. I said, who told you could bring it over there? He kind of hesitated and anything. So I called Mark about it.
Mr. Pelega, our Public Works and Electric Department Superintendent? Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, they bring him over there, and he said that they do all the trimming for the electric power company, and they were going to bring that stuff all over there. Now, we ain't got no money in this town. He suggested we need to do more things to pay for and stuff like that. Well, in the last 2 years, if we would have been collecting in the township for all the stuff they're dumping in there, we would have more money than we got now. We wouldn't have to raise fees on people in this town. People don't need it. We need to control the money that we need to come in this town. People need to pay their fair share. I don't mind paying my fair share, but I don't like paying for somebody else. And it shouldn't happen. Now, somebody in this town happened to know in the last couple of years that everybody's been using that. I'm not mentioning any names, but I'll tell you what, somebody knew. We should have been collecting all this time. Now what are we going to do? It's wide open there. So I go in there and I found garbage in there again today. People are dumping their garbage in there. Even had the, what's that, action paper? A whole bundle of that. It still has the plastic around, thrown in the ground in there. Empty, buy oil for your car, empty bottles of that. There's a frame from a house door, pieces of wood. There's everything being thrown in there, and nobody, it seems, to care. I don't know why this is going on. Something's got to be done. We got to do something about that compost pile because it's wide open. People are doing what? Oh, another thing. Yesterday morning when I was in there, this guy with this big trailer, right? I says, "Where do you live?" He says, "Michigan Avenue." Well, I stopped for gas. Guess what? He's coming down the road, so I follow him. He goes into West Ridge Heights. So I assume he must live in there. He had the trailer and everything, but he told me he lived in Michigan Avenue. I don't know what you're going to do, but you got to do something here because there's a lot of people in Gladstone that are very upset right now that they got to pay and nobody else is. It's not right.
A suggestion has been made to make a phone call to public safety when you see somebody who's doing that.
The thing is, that's not going to cure it.
So what,
You can't have that, the
Mr.
chief
Levine, Mr.
bringing
Levine.
police officers over there when they're already gone.
can I ask you a question, Mr.?
Yes.
What would you do to cure the problem?
Close it up. Put
Close
a
it
fence up.
completely?
Huh?
Close it completely?
Everybody in Gladstone pays their light bill, right?
Right.
Give every one of them a sticker to put on their windshield that they pay their $59.40 a year. And anybody else that comes in there don't have a sticker on their vehicle, they don't belong in there.
I'm not arguing, I'm just asking what your solution is.
That's one of my solutions.
Okay, I did have a conversation, Dave. We don't generally trade back and forth in public comment, but I did have a conversation, so I'm going to turn this over to the city manager so you can listen.
Okay.
The city manager did tell me that she does have a proposal to bring before the city commission. Please let her have the floor.
I sure will.
It is a very expensive proposition to do what you're proposing to do, so I think maybe now would be as good a time as any to tell me what you and I, tell everybody else what you and I talked about.
Take one and pass them down. So this was put together by Mark Plaga, my Electric and Public Works Director. Very, very rough. I mean, between last Monday and today, we had a lot of business to do, but very roughly, he sat down, drafted a compost site work plan. The highlighted, that's from me, so it looks like, I look at the numbers, pulled out the total, $83,000. That's a big number to me. That would completely wipe out any cash we had in the solid waste fund, so that I'm not recommending that, but some of the, part of the plan, add gates, additional signage, and a monitoring house with electricity near the entrance of the site. The cost of this would be roughly $12,000. I think that's easily doable pretty soon here, so that would be in place for the summer. Establish some regular hours, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., April 1st through December 1st. I know a lot of people bring their Christmas trees up there. We would have to announce maybe a weekend or something that we would be open for Christmas tree drop-off. Hire seasonal employees. I hope we're going to be talking about staff here at some point tonight. Minimum wage went up again January 1st, 2015. So overall, the amount of seasonal employees the city will be able to hire is less this year just due to the cost of minimum wage going up. But somehow figure out hiring a seasonal employee to monitor the entrance and the site during the hours that we're open. This person would do site cleanup, assist customers, overall site maintenance such as mowing, grass, trimming weeds. Approximate cost is $16,000 per year. Develop a sticker and fee-based system. We're already getting prices on stickers for our residents and the township people that we've offered it to. That would be $40 for the residential material brought up there for township people. We need to definitely increase the fee for lawn care companies that bring up large quantities up there. Establish a solid waste committee to help oversee the proper operations, rules, and policies of the compost site. This is just one part of the Public Works Department. It's a facility that we need to maintain, and I admit we've done a poor job of maintaining it. So here's some measures that we can put in place, hopefully relatively soon. One of the biggest one here, install a 2,300 feet of fencing, $50,000. We don't have that, but let's work on something. And then fix the road going in, some gravel, maybe $5,000. And then develop a system for public safety to address concerns as the site is, as needed. That's
Some of that is
rough plan.
doable. Fencing, the whole thing is obviously not doable with our
Yeah.
current financial resources, but establishing hours when it's open and locking it at all other points in time, I think, is a doable thing at a reasonable cost so that we can control the amount of flow. And so, unless you have something new, Mr. Levine, I think that's something the commission will have to
That was some of the things that Mark and I discussed last
Right,
Monday
and
we got
so-
together.
so-
Now, one thing I want to know, are you going to give the stickers to the residents of Gladstone so they know they paid? And the people from non-residents, will they be able, they have to show a sticker to come in there? That's what I want to know.
That's the
Yeah.
proposal.
Yeah, if there's a seasonal employee there, something's gonna have to be visible on that vehicle, allowing that
All
person
you gotta
in.
do is stick in the corner window like I do my steak park, my oil changes, whatever. It's not against the
Well,
law, I don't think.
We have to be careful at what we put on window shield, on windows.
Yeah, I
and-
know, but it's legal because we did it in Illinois, and I'm sure that it's legal anywhere, as long as it's not in the view of where anybody can't see.
Sure.
Okay.
So when is
on-
this
on-
gonna happen as far as the stickers? That's what I wanna know.
The commission
because
has to decide tonight. The commission is here to talk mainly about a
Okay.
budget, and they have to decide whether they're gonna ask staff to carry this proposal forward. But a proposal has been presented to the commission, so the
Yes.
commission will have to debate that for everybody to hear tonight.
And I appreciate what you're trying to do, because I'm getting sick of watching people going in there and not paying nothing. And people in Gladstone, I went to the hardware store the other day, and the guy told me, he says, why am I paying and these people ain't paying? They're all telling me the same thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Mr. DeClaro.
Hi, if you're going to talk about budgets with regarding just that last issue, if you guys can't come up with a thorough plan to make it pay for itself, then don't do it. Shut it down.
That's certainly a
Spending more,
possibility.
spending more money is always an option if you have the money. We have flat revenue. And I'm not here to argue with Mr. Levine, but I'm just talking from a common sense standpoint. If the city cannot develop a proper plan to make that compost site pay for itself without using additional funding, then don't do it. Just shut it down until someone can come up with a decent plan to put that in place.
Thank you. Anybody else, public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to go to the city manager for what you described earlier, today's brief comments on the budget. You feel like you need to get some direction from the commission. That's what I advised the commission at our last meeting. We need to take action on the budget that's proposed, but you did indicate you had some additional things you wanted to bring up.
So February 16th and 17th, we held budget workshops where we discussed each department and proposed budget for the new fiscal year. In preparing these budget workshops, my department supervisors and I spent hours analyzing the needs of each department. As city manager, I must look at every department and consider all requests, both financial and personnel, that are presented at budget time. At that time, the commission even praised my staff and me on the budget that we presented February 16th and 17th. So after the public hearing, March 9th, I looked at the commissioner comments at the end of the public hearing. And really what I got from that was the staffing that I was requesting was an issue. And the ski hill operational numbers, the MERS payment in the future. I think those were the big ones. So I think that really brings us here tonight to discuss, in my opinion, service levels of each department. Should we start with the ski hill? Operational numbers?
Wherever you want to start.
That was the sheet in your packet.
For the public, in case you haven't seen, there was a request made that we get financials on the sports park. The financials for the rest of the commission's consideration, that's one of the items I spoke with the city manager today about, do not look like the budget report dated 2/23 2015, which you may or may not have at your disposal right now, but that's the first item I went to. That was the last financial report the city commission has received, and the expenses were quite a bit larger in that report than they are in the report we have before us tonight that we've requested. There's a reason for that. The budget report on 2/23/15 included some major expenditures for capital items, which are, and when I say capital, I have a specific meaning, I mean a one-time expenditure that lasts for more than a year. Specifically the pond and some associated piping costs and et cetera that we did this year, which are not operational items, and they were mostly covered, I think, by external financing. Therefore, that accounts for the difference between that report, which was my initial thought when I saw the report we asked for tonight on an operational basis. Still, the sports park, as of tonight, is running almost a $12,000 deficit without March numbers available, because we haven't closed March yet.
Well, I've got a couple questions actually on that. I don't see anything in January or February for workers' comp. Liability insurance, I'm assuming we probably pay that on an annual basis. Where is that allocated for both the building and the liability?
Yeah, that's paid probably between April and November.
Okay, but what's the cost of it? Because what I'm looking at is the total cost of what that facility takes, you know, out of the general fund versus what it produces. So
think-
there's a cost there. It's
yeah.
just not it wasn't paid in December, January, or February, so that
Correct.
program had a cost.
So if you were looking at seasonality, you just looked at financials for the months when the sports park is open, you
Yes,
probably
this
didn't
is
pick that number up, so.
revenue directly brought in from the Ski Hill operations.
So that would actually increase the
Yep.
deficit level for that particular program. And you know, I just comparing January, I'm just looking at the revenue portion, comparing January and February. Looks like we do a lot of the majority of our business is done, you know, there during the Christmas holiday and then throughout
Yep.
January, and there was a significant drop-off in February.
Yep.
Could be attributed to the extremely cold weather.
It was.
But we definitely had a lot of snow. That was a
We
non-issue.
had plenty of snow. Yep, it was the
But,
temperature.
I mean, you're looking at a 75% decrease in revenue, and your expenditures only decreased 4,000 for that month. So that gives me a bit of consternation about March, what the March numbers will end up at. I don't know if we are open the same amount of time we were in February. Those I don't know.
Do you remember what our
But-
last day open? Wasn't it the last weekend in February was the last weekend we were open?
No, March we closed on Friday. Our last party was on Friday, for Bark River,
March 6th?
yeah.
Okay.
And we weren't open for that week. So I keep track of all that on a daily thing. So our revenues are going to be about $6,200 in March. We cut down significantly in it'll be representative of our of our expenses. We're not gonna make a ton of money as regards to our expenses. Our expenses are gonna be about the same as our revenue for March.
But I guess that would be very valuable information to have in front of me
Well,
tonight.
I don't have,
I said I
I
could
mean,
do
I
to the best of
understand.
our ability. That
I
was
understand.
available for us.
I understand, but she just said she did it on a daily basis, so I
my
mean-
revenues.
Okay.
So I keep track of my revenues. Payroll went in today, they get paid on Friday, so I have a week. But I only had like 2 or 3 days, because we weren't open, you know, Monday through Friday. We were just open on the weekends and for parties. So if you take that, we probably will end up being $2,000 in the good.
Okay, so basically, what you're
So now your
stating is
deficit
you
is
believe,
12,000, so maybe 10,000 for operational.
so you believe March will be revenue neutral then, essentially?
If anything, we'll make a little bit of money in March. Like the unemployment, I just asked Vicki, and because we do most of our, the unemployment line item, Vicki does that, and because we hire all of our seasonals, the bulk of it gets charged right then. So that is,
With any employee, it's right in the beginning, when you're making, you know, it's up to $9,500 per year, so you know, once you hit that threshold.
So it looks like 492 and then 738 and then 738. Well, that's because most of it hits right away. So that's a true cost. So March would probably be 738 again.
But workers' comp share, I mean, so far in the 3 months, there's 16 cents in workers' comp.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
That's quarterly, isn't it?
Right.
But again,
So
so
maybe
that
that's-
hasn't been paid yet, so we haven't, correct?
And have
Another
to figure
So,
that
so
out.
that goes in the same classification as the insurance on the, for liability and the building, as far as that's a cost that's
It's
not in
paid
this,
prior to.
not in this projection as far as the deficit level.
Right.
I guess I'm going to ask Commissioner Gay to come back to a point that you and I had on an earlier conversation. I think at some point in time, some commission is going to say, can the sports park become self-sufficient so that it doesn't require a taxpayer infusion in order to keep it operational?
I think that's a rhetorical question. I think we don't have a choice.
I perhaps would agree.
I mean, I think we're looking at, what was the projected budget based on the MERS payment for the next fiscal year? I mean, we were looking at a projected budget deficit in the 6 figures. I think the programs need to, I mean, if we have to only be open during our profitable time, you know, I'm up for any suggestions.
So I guess if the suggestion is if it's operating at a 10 or if it's operating at a $12,000 deficit, if you took the same amount of, I think the lion's share of the revenue from the sports park is from seasonal passes, it's not from daily passes or daily use of the facility. If you divided the total amount of seasonal passes into that deficit, could you raise the fees to the point where it would become self-sufficient? I don't know that you're prepared to answer that tonight, but that's basically what the question is, right?
I'm pretty prepared to answer some questions if you'd like me to.
Probably want to take up here then.
But there's other, I mean, so if we're talking Parks and Recreation, don't we need to look at all of Parks and Recreation?
That's the bigger question, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, campground, that makes a profit. Do we leave it alone? Do we analyze it? You know, definitely analyze it. The
Well-
harbor is self-sufficient. The beach is not. That's a cost to taxpayers.
Right.
The ice rink in the winter is a cost to taxpayers. The parks, maintaining the parks.
I think you probably want to get up here and talk about the sports park specifically, but it is a bigger question. And this is Nicole Sanderson, the Parks and Recreation Director. So
The sports park has three sources of revenue. One is renting out the building during the summer for weddings, different things like that. The other 2 forms of major income are, of course, your seasonal passes. Your daily passes generate some revenue, but your seasonal passes and your tubing. If we can do $27,000 in seasonal passes, keep it open for our residents through those seasonal passes, we're providing recreation for our citizens and for the surrounding communities. Where it's going to be profitable is our tubing. We have to, on Saturday and Sunday, we have to have anywhere from 100 to 175 people up there using our tubing hill on Saturday and Sunday. If we do that, we generate about a $6,500 week. That's what we need to do. And we were doing that until February hit. We lost $4,200 in parties that canceled, because after hours we do tubing parties. And our tubing revenue was down $8,200 in February. And that's directly coming from out-of-town tubers. If you live in Gladstone, you go up and you tube with your churching organization, with your Boy Scouts, with your groups. Once in a while, a bunch of kids will go up there and go tubing. But for the most part, the tubing hill attracts outside people to the community. We didn't have that in February. We were closed for a week during Christmas break, which equated to about $5,200 in lost revenue because of the rain. So is it weather dependent? Very much. We need to do our seasonal passes. We need to have programs up there. We need to have a product that allows us to be open constantly to attract our seasonal ticket holders, our season passes. But we also have to get the people in here from out of town.
when we did the master plan for that, Nick Sir Dennis, I think his name was, from Hancock was the expert, and you and he both used the term, the rates you've been charging are forgive me rates because you didn't have a first-class product to offer. Are you at a point now where you're levying rates that are not forgive me rates because you have a better product to offer?
We raised our rates. We're not up to where the other tubing hills are at. Other tubing hills charge by the hour, and they're anywhere from $8 to $12 per hour, where we're doing half days on the weekends for $10. So we're still at a reasonable rate. So when you're getting your people in from Oconopesh to go, as far as Green Bay, they don't mind paying the $10. That's okay for them. But I was down at a basketball tournament in Peshtigo, and we were just starting February, and the people said, I can't wait to get up there, we're just waiting for you to get some snow. So this was our first full year of having snowmaking capabilities that created a product that we could be confident in. It's gonna take more than 1 year to be profitable, and I don't care what any business that you're in, unless you're extremely lucky, it takes more than 1 year. This March, we knew that we were down in February, so we started a campaign with KISS in Green Bay, and they said there was a good response from the people in Green Bay for tubing, but then of course we are closed now because of the weather. So we're at a $12,000 loss on the operations right now. That's really 2 good weekends.
Right, but like, you know, there's some additional costs that aren't in here.
There is. And I wanted to point out too that if you look at like our payroll stayed the same for January and February because we still have to have the people up there, you know, in anticipation that, you know.
Government's never really been good at making money, with the exception of levying taxes. As far as governments aren't real good at running businesses is what I'm saying.
Our campground and our harbor makes money.
Yep, they do. And the harbor is an enterprise fund now. I think you and I have actually had a conversation about the campground, and you know, it's a positive for the general fund. Currently, it doesn't have its own, and that kind of offsets some of the other costs for the other parks and rec expenditures for the city. So you know, and actually that had been mentioned to me previously of suggesting putting that into an enterprise fund too, but I don't know that that'd be a good idea. I think that would actually hurt Parks and Rec more so than anything else.
Sure it would.
But
because it delivers approximately a $13,000 a year profit to help
Yep.
run the Parks and Recreation,
To
which
offset
would no
the other
longer be in the
costs.
general fund.
right.
Well, and keep in mind, and I don't have my statistics with me right now, which I would gladly, you know, print those out for you. I did a report 1 year with that, and Parks and Recreation costs money. Providing recreation costs money. We, as the city of Gladstone, I want to, and I don't have my numbers, so I'm not going to, but we recoup about 30 or 40% more than most communities. They always say if you can recoup 20% of your operational costs, you're doing well for a Parks and Recreation through user fees and different things. We do much better than that, and we continue to do better.
Right,
My
but-
budget continues to shrink as
but the
other
bigger-
budgets continue to grow.
The bigger picture is our future liabilities through MERS and our future deficits.
Exactly.
And the objective, you know, my objective would be to take the programs and make them as revenue neutral as humanly possible.
Of course.
So,
And
you know,
with the
this
city
has
of
been talked
Gladstone-
about since long before I was on the commission. It's been a very hot topic of conversation in several circles. So, you know, there's a lot of reasons why we're here tonight to discuss.
Sure.
And, you know, looking at a potential bond proposal in November, we as a commission need to be as judicious as possible
Of
with
course.
every dollar coming in. So if we have a program that services a very small part of the community, that 100% of that community is paying for through taxes, we have to justify it.
And one way you can justify it is that it does bring in, when the tubing is coming in strong, anywhere from 100 to 300 people from out of town to come into your community. And for $12,000, if you did an advertising campaign, you'd be pretty close to or your marketing strategies that you're looking at and some of your other revenues that you're looking at to get Gladstone on the map. $12,000, although it's
But to
it's
put-
money.
But to put that into a tangible, tangible number that, how much revenue is generated, it's impossible to quantify that based
Well,
on
and
those
also-
people.
and
I mean, you
also-
can take statistics, but is that really the case?
No. So, but are you spending $12,000 or $15,000 on a program that brings, 200 or 300 people into your community a year? That's your decision. Is that good? And then plus,
I think it's more I think it more becomes a priority because looking at future deficits, do we have that 12,000 or 15,000 or whatever it ends up being to spend on that?
Sure.
I don't know.
Before I left the house tonight, my wife reminded me what essential services are, especially in the context of bankruptcy. If an emergency financial manager took over, essential services would be the things they would try and provide. Anything that wasn't an essential service would be gone.
Nicole,
yes.
why are we using some of Dr. Keaton's money in this operation, or are we allowed to?
No,
We're not allowed to.
we're not allowed to.
What, I know in the master plan, we're talking about RIP lines.
Yep.
I know how popular they are. I've been past, down around St. Ignace, or there are long lines to go on those. We're talking about that. What kind of timing are we looking at for that, if possible, or?
Well, I was instructed to try to make expenses as flat as possible.
Yeah.
So we have been concentrating on making the ski hill portion flat as possible, trying to get our tubers in. We know that we have enough general population that live in the area that are using the hill now because our memberships went up $13,000 this year. So we know we're capturing that after-school program, that daily use. We know we're doing well there. So we're really trying to capture the tubing. So, without putting a bunch of money into zip lining and things like that we don't have, we would like to try to make this as flat or profitable so then we can move on to the next step. Now, is zip lining something that could create a revenue stream? Yes. Is the tubing something that will create a revenue stream? Probably yes. But is $12,000, is that something that you want to cut out of the budget and then?
Well, it was $12,000 this year, I understand that. I understand the cold weather in February. But the zip lines themselves, do we know what it would cost to put zip
No.
lines in?
No. We know where they're going to go in our master plan that we developed.
Would we consider allowing someone to lease that area and put zip lines in and pay the city for? It doesn't have to be owned by the city, right?
No, because the city has certain kind of provisions for their insurance.
Yeah.
We're allowed some leniency. We would have to really look into that. If a private corporation or company came in, they probably wouldn't be under the same kind of a lenience. Their insurance would have to cover that. Our insurance probably wouldn't. So that would be one of the things that we'd really have to research. But it is definitely something that we could do.
I did want to clarify one thing. I keep hearing this $12,000 number being thrown out there, and
Well, and that's just a number. It's
right,
probably
and
more.
$12,000, we know that's, there's some stuff that's not included in here as well as some revenue that's not included. We don't know it, what it is, but this is kind of a snapshot of where we're at right now. Do you have any thought on adjusting your times that you're open to?
Lower the expenses and raise the revenues?
Yeah.
Yes. And we were actually asked, because the same circles that maybe you hear that we should close it, I hear the other circles that we should stay open longer. And we actually close on Tuesdays and Wednesdays because we're able to open up for private parties, which bring in a revenue stream if it's not 80 below zero. And if we don't open Monday, Thursday, and Friday for the after-school program, you're gonna lose that $24,000 to $26,000 revenue stream from seasonal passes. So you take the $12,000 that it costs for operating it 1 week, and we do an analysis on that. Where we're lacking right now is the tubing. If we could have had the tubing up in February, we would have broke even this year. And not budget numbers. We would have made as much revenue as we spent in expenses for operations. We open up with a the thought that we're gonna lose money. We wouldn't have this year if we would have had a February. But I mean, woulda, coulda, shoulda, I mean, I can't sit up here and say
Well,
next year we're gonna break even, you know,
You-
because we might have another bad year with
No,
weather.
you can't, but at some point, you can, you know, somebody can make a decision to stop the bleeding too.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, with the weather now, I mean, I don't know you don't have any further operations planned this year up there, do you?
No.
Yeah, so that, you know, at that point, but like I said, you look at the February revenue compared to the January revenue, you know.
And look at the temperatures.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a primary reason.
It's terrible.
I guess it's something that I think it needs to be revenue neutral. If it continues, that may be something that has to be looked at and maybe discussed at the commission level as to when, you know, it's basically a guess, you know, based on the year, based on the weather. I don't know what else to tell you, but
We're always trying to be revenue, you know, equal. That would be nice. If we could have all the parks and recreation and not pay any money for it, that would be wonderful. So we've gone at a rec board level even higher than that, because, of course, our beach costs $36,000 to run for 2.5 months. 2.5, that's $36,000. That, it doesn't generate any money. Zero.
And that's
Zero.
And I've mentioned
So-
that to you, that's something that we need to look at is
Our parks-
outside people utilizing the beach and the other facilities that
parks-
all the city residents pay for.
Our parks, $54,000. Revenue, very minimal with our pavilion rentals and things like that. We offset some of that with our rentals. So we've discussed the townships, neighboring communities, visitors, being able to capitalize on the things that our taxpayers are paying for, because we can't charge to get to the beach. So, I mean, do we charge for parking?
Absolutely.
Do we have our residents have no parking fees and the townships have a parking fee? Are the townships gonna get on board and say, hey, you know what? In order to use all of Gladstone's parks and recreation, which are extensive, you're gonna have to pay. So do the townships come to an agreement and say, we're gonna give the city X amount and our citizens get a parking sticker? Or our citizens get a land use or a
Well, let's be
landfill?
realistic. Nobody's gonna fess up the money unless they have to.
Exactly. Well, and.
It's a nice
and-
thought, but unless somebody says, you know, we can't run it anymore on the revenues we have, either someone else helps us pay for it, or else we can't do it anymore, it's not gonna happen.
So please don't think that we're not thinking about all the other ways that we can generate the parks and our different facilities in order to recoup. So us, our taxpayers, including myself, don't have to pay for the township people using it. So when the real estate people say, move out of town, it won't be cheaper.
One thing I don't want to see happen, if revenue continues to stay flat and these MERS payments continue to rise as projected, ultimately Parks and Rec is going to end up with whatever Mary Cretans has to offer, and that's the only funding that would be available. You know, I mean, that's eventually that could happen. So the quicker we move towards revenue neutral, the better.
And like I said, my budget goes down every year.
I think
Okay.
everybody's.
No, everybody else's
I
budget
did
goes up.
get a hand here from Commissioner Matten, and I think Commissioner Matten wants to say something. He went like that, either he was waving to me or he wants to say something.
Well, really, I think Nicole made mention to it a little bit earlier that about the time frame here. It was about a year ago or so that we had made a commitment really to the ski park to put an investment with the pond and the plumbing up there and the snowmaking equipment, realizing that it probably wasn't going to give a real good history on it in 1 year. It's probably going to be maybe a 5-year history, a 10-year history. I'm not really sure, you know, but 1 year sometimes. I mean, we had just made a commitment to this thing, so I really think personally, I mean, we have to give it a little better chance. We can't be that fickle that we're going to have it pump money in it 1 year and then close the place down the next year. I think we have to give it some history here and some time to work out.
Well, I'm not suggesting closing it, you know, but
Well, I think we probably have discussed the financials on the sports park to the satisfaction of the commission for tonight's meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Along the lines, just a couple of comments here since I used to work here. What you're suggesting, Dave, is getting a private entity to invest in something that could be a moneymaker at the sports park. I told the commission at the last commission meeting, the city had the chance to sell the sports park one time years ago when I was working here. And they didn't do that, and I think if it was in the hands of the private sector, they'd be making those kinds of investments in things that make money. However, on the other hand, they'd be tightening the belt really tight on the things that you don't make money at. And so I think that kind of leads to what Commissioner Gay said, government doesn't do a really good job of making money at things. That's a fact. And so how much further we go in this particular operation to offer something that's really attractive for the kids to do in the community, and what we can afford to do may collide.
Yeah, if we were looking at like a traditional business where you have to make money or you're out of business, a good portion of the city would be out of business. So some of the things that we provide are going to cost money with really no direct profit return. It's just a service that's for this community that we feel that we need and we desire and we want, you know.
Keep in mind, at the last meeting, we heard the word bankruptcy. So that term was used, and if these MERS payments, if we can't get our arms around the MERS payments, we will eventually have to give up and say, we can't manage this city, and someone else will come in and manage it, and they would slash this in a heartbeat. There'd be no conversation. It'd just be, sorry. That's what happened in most of the communities downstate where the state took over. They said, okay, we're gonna straighten out your financial mess. You can't do it yourself, we're gonna do it for you, is what they said. So,
What
on
is
the
this
bigger,
last sentence on here about?
what was that?
Tara Langham will be here to present the plan option to flatten our defined benefit annual payment.
That's MERS.
I understand that, but how does it, where does it flatten? What are we talking about?
If we adopted a hybrid plan, that would basically open back up the defined benefit categories that we currently have, that right now are closed to new hires.
Okay.
So that fund needs to increase in payments, so the money's there for the retirees to collect. If we open those divisions back up, that liability could be extended. Right now, they're accelerating our amortization schedule, decreasing it by 2 years every year. They would loosen that back up and allow us to amortize it over more years. So that would not,
Okay, I understand.
Does that sound enticing to you?
It won't once you get the details of it.
Probably not, but also, I also understood that if the investments did better, our payments would go down. Now, the stock market's hitting all-time highs. How has that affected, do we know,
So
affected our payments?
Yep, MERS does an actuarial every year.
Yeah,
As of December 31st, we get our report in June of every year. So we'll know June of 2015, what our
But-
payment's gonna be in April of
but there's
2016.
a possibility that the large numbers that we are talking about may be less.
I don't think I'd hang my hat waiting for that to happen, from my opinion.
They may be
I'm
less,
just saying
I just
that-
don't know if it's significant.
Right.
Well, I mean, we have a lot of money there. I mean, wouldn't take a very big percentage to start talking about
But we're only
$100,000.
51% funded though, and they want our funding up to 100% as fast as we can get it there.
Yeah.
So that's part of the increase as well.
And I think the reason they're doing that, obviously, is so that what happened in 2008 doesn't happen again to them
Sure.
to the same degree.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate the fact that they want to get us closer to that 100%.
Yeah, but
It's just-
they're the ones that caused the problem in 2008, not us.
You don't expect them to stand up and say that, agree to that, do you?
But they did.
Well, I don't disagree, but you don't expect them to stand up and say
Somebody
that.
still has to pay for it, and it's not gonna be them.
Thank you.
It's like
That's-
that radio or that TV ad where the little boy says to his dad, well, what happens if they lose money, Dad? Do you still have to pay them?
Well, let me suggest something completely different here, and I don't know that this has ever been done. You might know the answer, although I probably should know. I have said to the commission, I've said to the employees that I really think that MERS, if they had it to do over again along the lines of who's to blame, would never have created the defined contribution, and therefore, all of the defined contribution pension that a number of our employees decided to switch over from who had been covered by defined benefit would offer more assets to cover future pensions. However, there's another side to that coin. Guess what it is? You'd also have to consider the future liabilities for pensions, right? I don't know that anybody's ever done that analysis to see where the defined benefit pension would be had that never happened, because you'd be bringing all the employees who are defined contribution back into an eventual defined benefit pension. So you'd have that liability you'd have to account for, as well as grabbing those assets and putting them back into the pot and saying, now we can count them towards a future pension. You've never seen that number? I didn't think so. So, it's food for thought.
There's
And
just one more thing, and I'll sit down. You guys were talking about, developing some of the waterfront properties and trying to entice people into our community, and some of the cost associated with that, getting some professional services in here. And actually, that would probably be a great way, to create more revenue so we can continue services. Please keep in mind, recreation, like you said, has a ton to do with why people move to an area. Quality of life, college, schools, what you can do here, our walkways, our trails, our harbor, our campground, our parks are just beautiful, including our neighborhood parks. And the ski hill, if it costs $12,000, might be something to consider, might be something that maybe would make somebody want to stay here and live here, especially with children.
Most of the new construction is taking place outside of our taxing authority, so while the parks may be really attractive, there's no question they're attractive. We've got to get people who want to live inside the city limits in order to be able to tax them.
That or charge them for using them. Thank you.
Possibility. And as far as the question on, the bigger question that you alluded to in Parks and Recreation, these are my numbers. You might come up with different numbers, but I suspect you wouldn't. When I look at the general fund budget, Parks and Recreation costs 56 cents for every dollar that's spent over and above the revenues it brings in. When I picked out the revenue accounts in the general fund and netted them against the expense accounts for the items we traditionally call Parks and Recreation. So that's the bigger picture of more items than just a sports park, of the parks, of the beach, and all those things you just heard mentioned. And it's becoming increasingly hard to come up with that kind of money. So,
Has there been any, I know it was mentioned briefly, has there been any further discussion on a Parks and Rec Authority?
Not recently. What we've been concentrating on is developing a user, non-user, or a resident, non-resident rates, and then being able to pass that on along to the townships, and letting our taxpayers pay less for the facilities that are here. Once that grows, the next step for that would be a park district, because if all the townships have to pay, X amount of dollars, they're gonna wanna be part of a park system, or a park district, recreational district. So the first step to that is charging people outside of our community to use of our services.
that's why I just mentioned to you, nobody's going to pony up with the dollars unless you make them.
Yep.
Well, exactly.
And I think we need to move hard and fast forward on that.
We've already started. One more thing.
Because I know we've had this, you and I had this conversation a year and a half or two ago.
And it started. We are entering into an agreement. They're meeting tonight, Escanaba Township. And we're entering into a service agreement for maintenance on our trail, the proposed trail that's gonna go to the terrace. So we're already in discussions, so.
Right, but that's obviously something that's gonna have to happen. But I'm talking specifically of all the services that the residents pay for that non-residents utilize for free.
The only thing that's not resident, non-resident, we did make the sports park resident, non-resident this year. The only thing that's not is our parks and our beaches.
And those are the ones that we
And
need
you
to deal with.
can capture that by a parking permit.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, we kind of diverted off there, and you had the floor, so, sorry.
How about, the electric and public works staffing proposal?
I don't think anybody had a problem with the electric department creating additional linemen. I think it was the public works position as the main.
But they kind of go hand in hand, because it's staff from one going to another.
Well,
Again, this is real rough, please don't quote this anywhere. Created last weekend, or last week. So 2014, public works employees, on the top left there, DPW duties, that's hours where existing staff worked. So if we take the solid waste compost site, solid waste fund, basically, We bid that out a couple years ago. We decided to keep it in-house. We went from 3 employees down to 1, bought the new garbage truck, bought the carts. So 2,100 hours is spent on solid waste. So that's pretty much one person dedicated full-time to solid waste. The other one I wanted to point out, if you look at the equipment number, 4,309 hours. That's well over 2 staff, and we have 1 full-time mechanic. So that means, but this kind of benefits our argument over here that we have such old equipment, we're spending a lot of hours maintaining it. If we could get a couple new pieces, maybe that hours would go down. If the lineman in training position goes to the electric department full-time, that would leave about 3.5 people in the Public Works Department to do all the rest of these other activities.
How many people did we have in Public Works prior to hiring Mr. Palega when Barry was the director at that point? How many did we have?
6.
Including the mechanic and including solid waste and everything?
How many employees
1, 2,
was in
3, 4,
was in
5,
DPW?
6, 7.
6.
Barry, Dave, Joe, James, Dan, Adam, Casey.
When Barry was a supervisor, you had 6 hourly people working.
Oh.
6 people in the field, right.
Well, no, Barry was in the field too. Remember in 2005, we asked Attorney Burkhart to, remember we sent them the Appendix A, are these people really exempt employees? And he came back and
2005.
said, 2000,
Just recently, I wasn't even here in 2000.
12.
Yeah, there
Sorry.
you go, okay.
And he came back and said, does he spend 51% of his time on
Yep, I'm
administrative
familiar with that.
duties? Well, that was the year we redid Delta Avenue, and he was out here in the backhoe 90% of the time. So he was in the field as well as trying to maintain the administrative portion of Public Works.
Okay, now, how many do we have in the field currently, including James?
6. 6 plus Barry.
Barry's in the field, so we have 7, including James.
Well, Barry is the coordinator. He is in the field, but he also does administrative duties in coordinating the projects for the rest of the department.
Which is what he did previously when he was the director also,
Mm-hmm.
correct? Okay. So I guess that's where my problem is.
I have no problem with 2 additional positions. I have a problem selling it to the public, and I'm just gonna ask staff, what's more important? Getting that done or getting 2 additional staff? Because I don't see both things happening in the community.
But it comes down to service level. If there's only
I'm well aware of that.
3.5 people, then how do we,
I think if that vote, whenever that vote occurs, if that vote does not happen, then we continue the slippery slide of not replacing capital items, and we can't afford to lose that vote with the perception out there that we're adding 2 positions when we already are having problems paying for the people we have working for us. That's just a fact. That's what I hear on the street from everybody, so.
I thought the person that was going into the electric department was coming from Public Works.
He is. That's
Correct.
James. James is going to the electric department.
Okay, so to replace him, we're basically, I mean, that's,
No, because we've actually taken Barry, who was previously administrative part of the time, and he's in the field.
I understand that, but as of right now, we're taking a person from Public Works and he's gonna be the 4th, he's gonna be a lineman in training, it's gonna be 3 years before he's certified as a full.
Correct.
And he's going to be the 4th person, and you gotta have 4 people with 2 buckets, I mean, you can't operate that department with anything less. And we're replacing the man that is coming from Public Works.
I don't agree with that, replacing man is coming from Public Works, and we could argue that all night. I think we have.
I mean,
the same
isn't the
amount-
man going from Public Works to the electric department?
Absolutely, and I think that's a wise move.
So there's 1 less person in the Public Works.
No, I believe Barry is more available on the streets now than is being reported.
Barry's there now.
Barry wasn't there.
Barry's there now, and we're taking 1 person from Public Works and putting him in the electric department. So we're replacing the person that was going from the electric department, from Public Works to electric department. I don't understand why there's so much hesitancy.
Barry was a supervisor before. Barry doesn't have the same supervisory responsibilities he used to have. He is now more of a
I
field man.
understand that, but Barry's there
Then I don't
now.
understand what your question is.
What?
Then I don't understand what your question is.
We have a situation right now where a person is going from one department to another, and we're replacing the person that's moving.
And I'm saying we have the same amount of people working here because we've made what used to be a supervisor into more of a working position. And I totally agree that we're working shorthanded, but I think that millage question is far more important than hiring 2 new people right now if we want that millage question to go through. Otherwise, we are
So
not.
in your opinion, there will be enough people in the Public Works Department to do the job?
No, there's never enough. In fact, I went to a meeting last week, and there was a fellow sitting here saying, a retired Public Works employee told me you're supposed to sweep the shoulder of North Lake Shore Drive, the old highway, and you're not doing it. And this was in relation to the walkway that goes out to Bayview. And my first thought, and I said this to Darla today, I says, if you're going to tell me the things we aren't doing right now, there's a lot more than that we aren't doing because we just don't have the staff to do it. But what can you afford? That's the real question. I know that people are stretched right now. They're stretched beyond their means. But I'm hearing an awful lot of backlash saying, if you expect us to vote for more millage to make it even more expensive to live in Gladstone, to replace the things you haven't been doing for at least the last 6 or 7 years in your budgets because you don't have the money to replace equipment, and then you want to add 2 more positions, that just seems like too much for people to take on. And I understand that position from people. I also understand the position of our staff saying, you know, we need help. I get both positions, but I'm trying, this is the most important thing I think we need to get to happen. And so if we're talking about adopting a budget tonight that includes 2 positions that doesn't sit well with the public, that's hard as a commissioner to sell. That's my point.
You know, personally, I don't think that would guarantee an approval on
Of course it
a
wouldn't.
millage increase
No,
anyway.
Of course it wouldn't.
I see it as basically keeping our employees at the numbers they have been. That's how I see it, is replacing people that have left, retired. We had a person retire out of the electrical department last March? March, okay. We're taking care of that, okay. Person moves from Public Works, okay, then we need to replace that. I don't see it as hiring 2 new people. In fact, when we combined the department heads, we basically hired one new department head to cover both departments. There, we didn't really gain or lose an employee because we did make some adjustment in that one department. But I don't see it as adding new employees.
So
It
I'm
really
hearing-
doesn't matter how we see it.
Well, you know,
To be honest with you, it matters how the public perceives it.
well, perception is one thing, but
understand.
reality is something else.
I agree 100%.
And I don't deal in perception, I deal in reality.
Well, that politics is all perception.
Well, then
And
we
the
should get
problem
the
is-
information out and make it clear what we're doing.
We've been trying to get the information out that Escanaba is more expensive than us, and the electric rates in Escanaba Township are more expensive than us. We've been trying to get that information out forever, and it hasn't worked. That's the problem. I mean, we can put together.
Hasn't worked for whom?
Have we increased?
I don't have
Are
people
we building
complaining to me
houses?
about these things you're talking about.
You gotta talk to more people then, I guess. I don't know. I'm just,
I hear plenty of people complaining to me, Dave, so I gotta wonder why they're not going to you then. And I also hear people tell me that they won't come to these meetings because nobody listens to them. I think it's the job of the commission to take a pulse of the public and make a decision.
Absolutely, I
So-
agree with that 100%.
I would say that
So
you're
if I'm
right.
not gonna listen to the people who tell me, we understand, but you're asking us to do this and to fund 2 new positions, then that makes sense to me.
We're not funding 2 positions.
That's what they tell me.
I don't believe that.
Well,
And the numbers are there.
You don't believe they're telling you that?
We're not-
Well,
we're
I
not-
believe they're telling you that, but that's not the reality here.
Okay, well, it's the perception out there, and perception sometimes is much greater than reality, and we all know that we have flat revenues right now, and if we're gonna reverse that situation so that MERS doesn't basically take over our ability to provide services, we're gonna have some problems, and I feel for any future commission, you do too, you'd agree with that.
Absolutely.
You know, you
That
want,
number scares you as much
Yes,
as
it
it
does.
scares me.
you want
That's-
to
that's a
talk
big one
about
for
those
me.
2 positions, all right? The one position would be primarily funded out of the electric department,
Correct.
okay? The other position would be probably revenue neutral. Is that a fair statement? The clerical position going to full-time would be primarily paid for out of the enterprise funds, the water, wastewater, and electric. The person moving from DPW to electric, being replaced, would put that budget where we're at now, correct?
Yep.
But that's not what the people think. And I agree with you that not filling these two positions isn't gonna guarantee that passes, but what I would submit is filling these two positions would guarantee a failure of that proposal. And that is what we need to have happen, in my opinion, to put the city on a better financial foot.
There will come a day, and you know this, Hugo, as well as I do, that we will be able to have people come to work and we won't be able to put them on the field because our equipment just is falling apart. The newest piece of equipment we have in Public Works is 13 years old, okay? When I got elected to the commission in the fall of 2009, I pointed out to everybody that we were on a regular program to replace all of our equipment when I retired. And since I've been on the commission, that's almost 6 years, we still have not replaced one piece of equipment in Public Works. We bought the solid waste truck, but we haven't replaced anything. And that equipment gets older and older and older. And then we have the fire truck that is, I remember cutting the check for that in 1989 when I was the city treasurer. It is now 27 years old. And what's creeping up behind it? A truck that I consider to be new that is our Pierce, which is 18 years old. We've heard people say, well, you really don't need a new public works garage, we can retrofit it. I think that would be the worst expenditure of public money to try and make it stretch more life out of that building. We needed a public safety officer because, let's face it, we hear every day how public safety officers are working alone in other communities, and when they don't have backup, bad things happen. Our liability and property people are gonna come to us and tell us, if you've only got one person on duty, and you expose that person to the danger that happens when God only knows who's in your community and that officer has to take a call, we're going to tell you that you're not meeting your minimum staffing requirements so that you have 2 officers taking a call. And then finally, we agreed that City Hall, that we had lots of meetings. You were on the commission at the time when everybody said, stay in this building, don't move to another building. So we said as a commission, we're committed to continuing to put money into this building. And that's the 5th part of that. And so that's what somebody's gonna have to vote on in the fall if this becomes a millage question, to add 2.5 to 3 mills more. I don't, hopefully it's only 2.5 mills, just to do those things. And then you're saying you want 2 more people as well? You know, where do you stop?
You still have to have people to do the work.
There's no question you do
Yeah.
have to have people to work.
You know, hopefully you get a good balance of people and equipment, what you need. But I don't think that is gonna make or break the needs that we have in this coming millage. This is what we need to maintain as far as staffing.
I think if you added those 2 positions, I think, as I said earlier, I think you guarantee that fails. I don't care. I don't care how much education, public service announcements, or little trails behind airplanes you do for provide information. It's still
We're
not
also
gonna-
very
it's not
limited,
gonna
as
help.
we've discussed, we're very limited into what we can even do as a commission, unfortunately. I can yell from the rooftops, I know what I'm talking about, I've worked here before, I know how the financials work, but who's gonna listen to me? We're limited as to how much we can even spend to try and push that millage. We can't take public dollars to do that.
And I will concede that adding these 2 positions had a, what was the number, the net effect on the general fund? It was minimal, it was like 2,000? That's the net effect on the general fund. That's inconsequential. That's not my reason for the opposition. My reason for the opposition is because I hold that in the highest regard at this point as far as getting it passed.
Sure, I think all of us do on the commission, that's why we've agreed to promote these things that we think we desperately need for the community. And I think that's another issue. You know, I think that's something between now and when we decide we can put it out to a ballot, we work on, we continue to share with the community and be upfront with them as much as we can, what we can do and what we can't do with the dollars we have. And then it's their decision, and then based on that, we have to decide what we can provide and what we can't provide. But I don't think we help
You do know
ourselves.
as well as I do that if we don't get this millage through, we're gonna be in a world of hurt because our equipment's gonna start to fall apart.
Absolutely,
We cut
And we have no way to replace it.
absolutely.
There's no way in the budget to pay the people we have working here, because the last 6 years budgets that I've been a part of have not replaced any major piece of equipment. We've been paying our people, albeit our people have had to give concessions in labor contracts. You're aware of that. You're aware of that. There have been major concessions by city employees. I don't see any end in sight to that. We're gonna be stretched to the max trying to make our payments for pensions. And this is causing you a look that I don't generally see in you. So I think that's where we're at with this budget right now. This is the big problem we have.
Yeah, I just don't see where not hiring people is gonna help this community.
I'm sorry, I diverted away from you again. You had the floor, but there's more?
So the other staff person would be the cashier at City Hall. I proposed putting that position full-time, and that would really enable us to do two things. Right now, we're open to the public 9 to 3. I think if you look back over the year, City Hall hours has been brought up the most, you know, as a concern for City Hall. Go back to what you used to have, and that was 8 to 4. And then this was mailed out with the utility bills in the fall. Our phone book is awful. People cannot find the correct phone numbers to call the departments. So we put the note on here, please hang this on your refrigerator, wherever you can put it, so you have access to the correct phone numbers. We are available by appointment. And then my second issue with the cashier going full-time is to back up the utility billing position.
Which I think is a great idea, and I initially supported it. The person who is in this position, I won't name names, but for the rest of the commission, just in case you don't know this, that person is super about customer service. I mean, she's above and beyond the call of duty as far as public service goes. But I've heard a lot of people say, we can't afford it, we can't afford it, we can't afford it. And, you know, when I hear people say that in the public, I gotta pay attention to both sides and then try and make a decision on a budget, which is not an easy decision to make. Because you're talking about people and their lives. I've given up trying to call on the phone. When I want to talk, mainly it's with the city manager, or you'll delegate it to your staff, and I text message you, and I can tell the public that when I text message the city manager, it gets returned on that day. I don't know that the public is going to want to text message you, and besides, on top of that, if you got 1,001 text messages, you'd be stretched out. You told me this morning when I asked you whether we could meet, you said, well, this morning I got to answer my emails and all the stuff that's been sitting there waiting, because you do want to take some time off too, right? So I think, is there anything else you wanted to bring up, Darla?
I think that was the main points from the commissioner comments at the end of the public hearing.
Well, unless the commission has a real problem with this, I'm probably going to go back to public comment again.
As far as.
Allow the public to have one more shot at public comment before the commission discusses, and then I'm going to go back to the commission. Is that
Well,
okay?
just one thing on the hours. In the event, I think we can look at modifying the hours a little bit. I don't know that, in the event that we don't, the commission does not, make that position full-time, I think that we can, still have the same amount of open hours, but, set at different times so that, people can, you know, different times, different days, on Tuesday or Thursday, open from this, you know, this time to this time, and the regular hours, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever works best for the staff that's manning the.
Okay, I said I was going to go back to the public, so before we go to that, then I'm going to go back to the city manager and ask for your reaction to that. Is that something you have even thought about?
I have, and I looked at Secretary of State's website again today. My staff and I have talked about, because that was mentioned before. Wednesday evening, they're open to 7. I just don't see the traffic that would come in until 7 at night.
Well, I didn't say stay
No,
open until 7, but I'm saying if you staggered your hours, maybe you could go, you know, like on those days, they open at 11 o'clock. they don't even open till 11. But if you staggered your hours to where someone, let's say 2
One night
days a
till
week,
5?
they came in late and stayed till 5 or 5:30, whatever. But something to give people in that, that work a little later than 2:30, give them an opportunity to come in without increasing man hours. In the event that the commission does not to make that position full-time.
So let me ask you this. Would the majority of the people coming in at that time be to pay their utility bill?
That's hard to say. I couldn't speak to, I would assume so, because that's probably the primary traffic coming in and out of the door. But we do have a drop box for that. It's hard to say.
Well, the reason why the city manager brought this before us, first of all, I don't fault her for trying to bring for trying to develop a budget that added 2 new positions. I don't fault her for that. As far as the one position goes, we got a lot of feedback from the public saying they didn't like the hours of City Hall. One of the first things I was asked to do by you when you were sitting in Mr. Wiesner's office when you were still a treasurer was you said to me, you said, you used to work here and you know that we're not working with the same amount of people, which we weren't at the time. The least you could do, when you said this to me, at least give us an hour off in the morning and an hour off in the afternoon, so we would, because there are certain tasks that if you get interrupted on, it's really hard to finish them. And so we went to that, and during the past year, we heard some feedback from the public saying that City Hall wasn't open in the desired hours of the public, and so that's why you proposed this. Now, alternate hours or extending your hours maybe a day a week to be open longer, I would think the public could adjust to that. The people who are complaining that they can't get in here, I think probably in the far end on the afternoon is more important than the morning by 3 o'clock. And so if you stayed open one day a week longer, that might meet the need that the public is stating. That they can't find their way into City Hall before 3 o'clock.
And I'm not saying stay open till 7. That's, they're the Secretary of State. They've got a lot of people. They've got people that they can float into those hours. We don't have that amount of staff, but, I don't know, 5:30, what would work best?
I believe on the poll that we had taken, it's been a while since we had the poll, but that was one of the most frequent requests on the poll as far as the citizens wanted longer hours for the city. But I think there's some other benefits here too, and maybe Darla could speak to that, to wanting to make these changes, and it has to do with utility billing and different things too. So it's not 100% just for that, there are some other advantages.
I could speak to that. We have no backup for utility billing, right?
Yep.
Nobody's trained in how to use the utility billing software to produce a utility billing cycle.
Not like our main utility billing person is.
And if you don't get your utility bills out on time, guess what? Your revenue starts decreasing. We rely on the cash that comes in mainly from the electric fund to pay bills, even though it's accounted for in all of the funds that really own that cash. Having an electric utility and having the regular cash coming in from electric utility is really very helpful to pay your bills.
I've heard a maximum number of people here, full-time employees, at 52. Is that correct?
Yep.
And right now, we're at 30 what?
37, 36,
We're
37.
at 36, 37. Okay. Is it 36 now with the person that retired from the electric department?
Yeah, it'll be 37 with the new officer.
37 with the
Pretty
new
sure.
officer, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing new, I'm going to go back to the public, ask for any public comments. So anybody in the public who'd like to stand up after you've heard us talk for, what, an hour and 15 minutes now? Mr. Levine.
Looking at this chart you have here, I noticed what you did. Where it used to be compost pile, now it's compost and solid waste. Why was that? That's why it was changed, so it could pay for that truck? Is that the reason?
No, solid waste is the fund. There's several departments in the
Yeah,
solid
but
waste
it
fund.
was originally, I found an old light bill, and it said compost. It didn't say compost and solid waste. Now
Yeah,
it's compost and solid waste.
It
What-
used to be refuse pickup, and people didn't understand what that was. That's garbage and recycling. It's requests from the citizens, what is this charge? What is this charge? What is this charge? So we're trying to find terms that are,
Well, it's on my light bill.
yeah,
My light bill says that.
No, it doesn't say compost. Customer service charge, under solid waste.
What?
customer
You-
service.
Under solid waste, you have your garbage recycling pickup, and then the other charge you're talking about is called the customer service charge.
That's what it's changed for?
That's what it's,
Okay.
that's what it's called. It doesn't say
Now,
compost.
okay. I'll go along there. Now, let's talk this. If we get these people from the townships to pay their $40, I think you told me Branton has 350 residents?
I printed 900 letters for them.
Yeah, okay. So say half of them take it. Escanaba Township is even bigger. Then you got Wells Township. That's a lot of money. Because for $4.95 a month, that's $59.40 a year for all of us. And that comes to over $100,000. So if the budget is $45,000, why can't we afford to put the gates up and some of that? It's not, forget the 50,000. How about all the rest?
Right, well, that's what I proposed to Mark. Let's start with the shack and the seasonal employee and a gate at the entrance and
Yeah.
fix the road. Let's start with that this year, and then maybe the fencing next year.
And stickers for the windshield.
Right.
That's important because some of us are still gonna check down there. I go there twice a day and I see things going on. It's unbelievable. You find garbage all over the place and a contractor putting his stuff from the power lines over there, big piles of it.
But we're
Who-
also request Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the gate will be locked, nobody uses it.
Is anybody paying the city for that dumping of that stuff there right now? These private companies?
The ones that you talked to
When the
today?
guy called you today after I talked to him, what did he say to you?
I called you before I called him back.
Yeah, okay. So what did you tell him?
Said that it's for the city residents right now, how we just have.
Or is he
set it.
gonna dump it now, today?
I don't know.
If I go there and see it tomorrow, what's gonna happen?
I just told him he's not supposed to be in there.
Well,
If you see him there tomorrow, you need to call public safety.
I will definitely do, I ain't gonna see him, I'll see where they dropped all the branches. Cause they choice piles of it. Because the sooner you get that going, the happier people in Gladstone are gonna be. You're gonna make money off that compost pile, I know you will. Cause everybody's paying, you won't have a guy in there every morning pushing it all back all over the place, if we'll be able to afford to do it.
Anything else, Mr. Levine?
No, I just want to know when we're going to start issuing those things for the windshields. When you going to start? That's what I want to know.
I want them ordered by the end of the month. I was off last week a couple days. I don't know if we got the final numbers. We're trying to standardize, remember the sticker I told you at the last meeting?
Uh-huh.
The harbor sticker, the compost site sticker, maybe the parking sticker.
Okay, the reason I'm saying this, by the end of the month, there'll be no more snow, and these people are going to be hauling leaves, branches, which they're already doing. You're going to have to, the next couple of days, push that stuff back. That's the weight that's coming in there. I still believe we make money off that compost. I don't care what anybody says. If you got people, all the people that come in there and not paying, if they're paying, that's income. Income is what we need in this town. That's all I got to say.
Thank you,
about
Mr.
it.
Levine. Any other public comment? Patty?
As you all know, I'm the utility billing clerk. And I just wanted to say about the full-time clerical of, the cashier becoming full-time. There were just a couple things I wanted to give you food for thought. One, I'm eligible for retirement this year. Whether I do or not is, my choice on when I decide I want to go. In my way of thinking, to get somebody fully up to speed on utility billing from one end to the other, you're looking at about 1.5 to 2 years, with training, working. Currently, we have no union employee, because this is a union position, that knows utility billing. I can't show anybody, other than what our cashier has learned, how to do the billing. It wouldn't work to have somebody from the electric department or DPW, water or wastewater, coming in once every 6 months or whatever to fill in, because they're not going to know what they're doing if you do it occasionally. I do plan my vacations or whatever around my billing cycles. I try and be, try and do that. But it does get, with the years of service I have in, harder and harder, because I do accrue the vacation time, and I don't want to get to use it or lose it time with my vacation. I try, a day here, a day there, but you don't get to decompress. But one of the things I just want the commission to think about is we don't want to get ourselves in the situation we got in with a previous employee several years ago on what happened with that employee when they were in an unfortunate accident. If something, I left here tonight, something happened, there's nobody who can take over for me. And we really need to look at that on ensuring that we do have the staffing to cover what we have. Utility billing is a revenue-making source. And if things don't get done in the proper manner as set down by state law, we can get ourselves into some trouble, which we don't want to do. So it's just a little food for thought for you guys on when you are thinking about this, that there are other reasons besides we just want to have somebody else full-time in this office. There are some other back issues on why we do want to look at it, since we don't have the backup that we really should, and we really do need.
Any other public comment? Mr. Duclair?
I'm going to try and keep it chronological for the way you had the meeting. I've only been here since 2001. That Ski Hill's been here for as long as I've been coming up here to hunt, which is sometime in the 80s that I remember. And from what I can research and what I found out, that Ski Hill's been losing the city money year after year after year. If you're in a position of cutting services, letting public safety go to the point where they did, where they don't have full 24/7 coverage, that's not the way to cut public services. Parks and Rec is a luxury. We have the luxury of having nice parks and nice ability to recreate around here. The Ski Hill's been losing money. Whether you put in money into the pond or not, hindsight's 20/20. If you're looking at a possible financial crisis in the future, and I think you are, as a lot of places will be over the next 5 to 10 years, if you are forced to do the accrual method of accounting, you're going to find out that you cannot cover your obligations, and you will therefore be declared bankrupt, and someone will come in and take over. That's a worst case scenario. If you look towards that method of accounting to see where your numbers are at and where your true liability as a city is, I think all the rest of you are going to sit there and slash and burn everything you can until you can get just the basic services. I'm not going to try and slam any of the city employees, but I'm going to tell you what your essential services are. Public safety is one of them. We have a water system, and they need hydrants to put out fires. Public safety has probably saved you guys more money over the years by having one person doing 2 jobs, a firefighter and a police officer. And those communities that have that ability are far better ahead than the ones that don't. Just look at the city of Detroit. They're a mess. Every time I've ever come to any of these meetings, budget hearings, whatever, I've never heard any factual, finite data out of Parks and Rec for anything, for what they're making. If that campground can be self-sustaining, then make it its own. If it's profitable enough to keep its own infrastructure going and make enough money to do repairs and maintenance over the years, do the same thing you're doing with the harbor. That's a smart move. You never hear me argue about those type of things. What I argue about is anytime more money is being spent when you don't have it, or when you know you're probably not going to have it. And with flat revenue streams, you guys are going down a horrible road. The one thing you do have here, the diamond in the rough that you actually have here, is your beach. That's an absolute diamond in the rough. If it were groomed and maintained properly, and I've been around this country enough to see other places that have a beach, it doesn't even have to be warm to have people out at the beach. if it's a nice beach, they're gonna be out there. Just to enjoy the water and the waves. I've been on beaches in cold weather areas in Europe. I've been to them in Florida in the off-season when it's not so warm. They look at us as though we're crazy. We're down there in shorts and a t-shirt, and they've got winter coats on like we have now. It's a draw. The number you can put on that draw is how many successful businesses are getting money off those people coming into town, spending gas, going to a restaurant, maybe sitting at the lodge, using some of the lodging. We're losing some of those businesses. We're down to one hotel. Good luck finding any place to eat as a regular restaurant. You've got 4J's that's open on Monday, and then you've got Gibby's and Saloon. That's unless you really want fast food on a Monday. People want to go out to eat on a Monday, they got to leave town. That's money that you guys could be getting in as revenue by having a business in here. Those are the objects, those are the items I'm always talking about. So if you got to slash and burn, the little money you put in that beach, if it were groomed properly, it's a draw. To me, the ski hill, it's been losing money for so many years. Why are you going to keep putting money into something that's losing money? If the ice rink's not making money, so what? If it's cold enough, I've been out here in winters, people have gone out there and they've done pickup hockey games out on the bay. There's places to make up for that. If your parks need extra leaf raking, extra cleanup, I'm not talking about actually cutting the grass, but I do know that there have been other community groups that have done that. And there's a couple of boys, I know the one troop here has done that in a couple of parks over the years. They've gone in the fall, they've done some leaf raking. You can ask people to help out. You'd be amazed at how much they're willing to help out. If you want this, I'm going to tell you right now, you have to get what you're working on in order. So if you're going to sit back and go through all those items, I mean, if you're going to have a zip line up there, that's something that regular parks do. Water parks, the Dells. You go there, they have all that fun stuff there. That's a privately run enterprise or business or corporation. They're doing it to make money. It's the liability's on them. The city shouldn't even, I mean, if you're going to go down that road and have someone take over that ski hill for a year-round park type setup, whether or not they're going to have a water slide in there or zip lines or whatever, you guys own the land. They'd have to pay you whatever you need to make that money, but the business is on them. If they fail, it's bad on them. You're giving them the opportunity to bring that business and bring those people to town. That ski hill's not a draw. That beach has always been a draw, and it's been getting gradually smaller over the years. When you guys talk about the walkways and the trails, I can tell you right now, I'm up on the bluff, and there are 2 parts to this city, and everyone forgets about that. Your current plan for the master plan completely eliminates the fact that you have no way to connect 2 parts of your city, your east and your west, up on the hill or down on the town, however you want to call it. When you can figure out how to make that happen, you will get people crisscrossing. I walk down here a lot, weather permitting. I've walked down the cow path. It is in dire need of getting a Boy Scout troop for an Eagle Scout project to go in there and do something. The old South Hill Road, it's walkable, it's falling apart. You guys don't really have the trails. You got the one that's along by the campground, that's pretty cool, but I don't go there much. I don't go to the campground because I already live here. But if I had friends or relatives come by here that can't handle the overload, yes, I would send them there in a heartbeat. With your MERS looming, you guys, again, go back to the accrual method accounting and look at what's going to happen with that MERS payment looming. And make the decisions today and in the coming weeks based on what you're going to have over the coming years. If I knew that I'd borrowed X amount of dollars and I have a payment that's due in 5 years and my business isn't covering it, guess what? I'm out. If I've borrowed that money, guess who else is out? And I'm getting sued and it's bankruptcy and it's a big mess. So think about what it would be like if you actually owned this city and ran it as a business to make it function at minimum as a break-even proposition without having to come to us over and over and over again and asking us for more money. Because the city has been nickel and dime to death for decades. And it's just, I'm just here to tell you, there's not that much more money out there.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'm going to go to the commission before we adjourn for the night. We're supposed to adjourn at 7 p.m. I'm going to change up the order. I'm going to go to Commissioner Bostwick first.
Well, I don't know, I've talked to people in the DPW who has said that they need more people working, so I don't know, I think it would be, I don't know, I'm kind of iffy on whether we need to replace that one or not. But the cashier one, I think we definitely need to go full-time, especially with the utility billing. And especially, I'm not quite sure if one day a week being 11 to 5 or whatever would really make people happy anyways. So, that's basically what
That's it?
we have. Yeah.
Now I'm going to go to Commissioner Matlin. You weren't expecting that, were you? Caught you by surprise.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's all right. You can adapt.
When I came here last Monday night, I was good to go to okay the budget that we had in front of us, the proposed budget, and that's where I'm still at. I'm okay with the proposed budget.
That's it?
That's it.
I'm going to go to Commissioner Gay next.
I believe that we need to make the electric department, well, we need to have that transfer occur. As I've stated multiple times and will continue to state, we need to prioritize the bond proposal. I think that is the only thing that's going to decrease the chances significantly or eliminate the chances of us cutting services in the very near future. The public perception of adding 2 additional people, I still believe would be the death blow to that bond proposal. I believe I would like to see, I'd like to see some movement on the ski hill and moving more towards revenue neutral. This is the first time that we've been presented with a budget that added an addition, this is the first time we've been asked to add full-time staff in City Hall.
And the reason for that basically is because the commission has directed in the last 6 years that I've been on the commission to develop budgets that are bare bones budgets. That's why we have these equipment needs that haven't been met.
And what I would say to that is, we've just realized a 9th public safety officer, and I've been fighting for that since 2011. So,
Pass me the water, please.
I believe we need to,
Thank you.
I believe we need to modify the budget that we passed to encompass those things I've indicated and to play chess, not checkers, and try to get what the city truly needs to put it on better financial footing, and that's that bond proposal.
Commissioner Nemechek.
I've been through chickens. I've been through RV in the streets. I've been through the reinstatement of the 1.8 mills. I feel the necessity that we have an additional public safety officer. I don't have any problem with that at all. I think that's number one. I sit here and listen to Commissioners Gay and Mackey say the word 2 additional, and I quit counting it 10 times. And I think that it's perceived because we have caused it to perceive. I think that if we had a person retire, so we transfer somebody from Public Works to that department. Then we replace the person in Public Works. We keep saying additional people, but, you know, I think it's perceived that way in some quarters because we have caused it to perceive. I have no problem, I'm with Commissioner Matten, and I have no problem with the budget that was presented. I think the MERS payment, I think that we may end up covering a good share of the extra by the sale of our properties. I think the Ball Diamond area is going to bring a lot more money than any of us think. I sold, the Methodist Church sold that property to the Gladstone Clinic for $200,000, where that's located. I mean, I think sometimes we don't realize the value of some of the properties we have. And I agree, if the ski hill doesn't perform, let's sell the whole kit and caboodle to somebody that can go in there, run a ski hill, put in zip lines, and make a profit doing it. And I don't think we'd have to look that terribly far to find somebody that would be willing to do that. And I think the ski hill property alone would cover a good share of what the extra MERS payments is going to be. I, years ago, talked to Marquette Mountain when it was under different ownership about coming down here, and I don't think they're the ones that made the offer to buy the property. I was looking at them to be the ones that were running the ski hill as a feeder hill to Marquette Mountain. But I think there's enough companies now, and there's enough people and enough investment people that I don't think it would be that hard to sell it. And maybe it should be sold, and maybe we should get a tax base from that, the money that the sale, what do we think the ski hill property is worth? You know, I mean, it's at least worth $1 million. Anyway, I think we have to start realizing the value of what we own and be willing to sell some of it. But I don't have any problem with the budget the way it's presented.
And I get to speak last. I'm only running for the city commission because I believe in this community, and I believe this community has assets that are way underperforming. The sports park has not been my area of focus as an area that's way underperforming. When I met with staff, I pointed out other areas that I thought were a lot more easy areas to develop, that if we could get them developed, would start to attack the MERS problem, because the MERS problem, I think if I was to go down the line here to the commission, everybody is afraid by that number. That's a scary number. So I didn't identify that site as the #1 site that I thought would produce revenue for the city. But to take this on a different tack, and it's whether I'm a member of this commission in the future or not, and I'm going to throw this out there, and I know you got this at the last meeting. It's going to take some intestinal fortitude of the city commission to withstand the public pressure when people say, well, yeah, but don't develop that area. We're going to have to stand to our guns and say, these are our assets. These are our assets that are underperforming. We have to get them to perform at a much greater level. In real estate, they call it highest and best use. You've heard that term before. And so, and I told you the story of my aunt, when my aunt told me, your solid waste fees are really expensive, Joe, and we're retired and we're on a fixed income and we're having a hard time to meet it. And so I said, well, Auntie, what if we develop this area? And she said, well, I don't think that'd be a good idea. And I said, well, how about this area? And she said, well, I don't think that'd be a good idea. That's what I'm referring to. There's going to be people that are going to say, well, that's not a good idea. And I think we're at the point where, yeah, it is a good idea, and I think we better do it. And if we don't do it, that number is going to swallow us whole. We won't be able to make it and fund current services. We won't be able to do both. No. We won't be able to do it with our electric fund. That electric fund is a nice profit maker, but we'll never be able to catch up with the MERS payments with the electric fund. Besides, it would be really bad business to even attempt to do that. So that's my proposal. Some other folks who are interested in perhaps serving don't speak that same way. I will point, you also mentioned in your summation, Commissioner Nemchek, to the public safety officer, and I'll remind this commission and anybody who's sitting here, the first thing that went was public safety when times got tough after 2009, and to continue to operate that way makes no sense when you see the kinds of situations that public safety officers get put in every day, and municipalities end up in court having to defend the actions of those officers because the staffing level is not where they should be. And so we will not be able to catch up. Even if everything that I can see in my crystal ball were to develop the way I would like it to develop, and that I presented to staff, we still would not have the money to catch up with those needs which have been neglected for far too long. I think you'd agree with that. You're going like this. So it's really critical that that millage, whoever the commission ends up being, whether it's myself or whether it's other new people on the commission, it's very important that that millage question get answered correctly by the community in order to catch up with far too long of not funding capital items. And of course, we're limited in what we can do to try and get the public to vote for that. You can talk to people, I can talk to people, you can talk to people, but still in the end, people are going to have to come out and vote for that. So that's where I'm at on that. I'm not sure where I'm at on the budget, but we have, when's our next meeting? It's not this week, right? We pushed it forward,
March
right?
30th.
At our next meeting, we have to come up with a budget, or I can't let the commission adjourn that night, because we have to have a budget. So that's where I'm at. That's our job, is to come up with a budget. And I can't see us adjourning on March 30th if we don't have a vote for the budget that's presented or an alternative. So that's what we get to go home and think about tonight. You guys get to watch us do it. We have to eventually vote on a budget, because that's our job. There being nothing further, you have a look on your face like you want to say something. No? Okay. All right. We'll be stand adjourned there. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Good night.